Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle, and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep. What company do you keep?
Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It show. We are so delighted to be here today and that you all have decided to join us. I am Dr. Sharon Cradle, the oldest of this dynamic duo.
And I am Sherelle Higgins, your favorite co-host of this dynamic duo.
Yes, we are going to have some fun. I'm going to tell you all right now, if you all don't know who this gentleman is sitting next to us, you got to ask somebody because you're about to find out.
That's right.
So you may as well just tell all of your friends to go to listenvisionlive.com and get prepared to listen to this great interview that we're going to have today. And as I normally do, I'm going to start off with scripture. But the only thing I want to say about scripture today is, behold, God will do a new thing.
Oh,
and
right.
so
Yes.
I think this is appropriate for this gentleman, Mr. Bobby Gales. If you all don't know, that voice, the face, he's stationed right across the street.
Not too far.
And that's exactly right. At Howard University, WHUR 96.3.
Mm-hmm.
And Bobby and Renee Nash, I always have to give a shout out to Renee Nash. They're the ones who bring me into the studio every year to allow me to promote my conference. And the last time, this was my 4th year, so the last time I looked at Bobby, I said, well, has anybody ever interviewed you? I need to have you on my show. And so because he has such a rich history in the radio business that I thought, why not ask this man to come and join us? So thank you, Bobby, for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. And it's funny because now I'm between, two very high-powered women.
Yes.
Yeah, I like being between high-powered women.
That's
Yes.
right, exactly.
So I don't have a problem with that. My wife is high-powered.
Yes, she is.
Shout out, Joy.
Yes.
My daughters are high-powered.
Yes, exactly. You're just surrounded by high-powered women.
It's black girl magic.
Exactly.
My mother, my sister.
That's right.
There you go.
Exactly.
My niece.
Exactly.
So
yes.
I got to give it up.
Yes, exactly. And if you want to call into the show, the number is 833-202-TALK. 833-202-8255. So we're just going to kick it off.
There you go.
Bobby Gales, if you all, anybody that listens to 96.3 should be familiar with the voice. I'm not so sure if everybody's always seen you because you're kind of behind the scenes kind of guy, so to speak.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. So introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us, who you are, where you're from, and how did you end up in Washington, D.C.?
Okay. Well, this is kind of a switch because normally I'm asking the questions.
That's right. I knew I was
I'm doing
gonna
the
get 'em.
interviews.
That's right.
So now you're putting me in the hot seat now. But,
And can I say this to you?
yes.
I told my husband, I think you said this is your first time that someone's actually ever really interviewed you. Is that correct? Or
To a degree.
to a degree?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's a shame.
But we have a lot of questions for you.
Yeah, I'm glad we're the first.
Yes.
Kind of, sort of.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But this is fun. Once again, I'm here at WHUR 96.3.
Yes.
I'm working with the Steve Harvey Morning Show.
Yeah.
I'm the producer. I'm also the host of Taking It to the Streets,
Yes.
where we talk to movers and shakers in the community. We talk to nonprofit organizations. We try to help those in the community extend their brand, extend what they're doing, give them some love,
Yes.
show them that we're here for them. And that's very important
Yes.
because not a lot of stations will do that.
That's for sure.
And so WHUR is on the cutting edge of that, and I'm glad to be part of that. Career-wise, you want to know my career, basically.
Tell us where you're from.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to get to that. I was gonna
Okay.
get to that.
Wait, okay, so
Yeah.
Bobby,
Yeah.
we're interviewing you, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So you got to follow along.
All right. I have to learn to take instruction, right? I have to take instruction, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Just for a little while.
Okay. All right. Just for a little while. That's hard for me to do.
we see.
Yes. Okay. I'm originally from New York, born and raised in the Bronx. Went to City College in New York, Stevenson High School. Raised by two great parents. I have one sister. That was enough. And then from there, I found my calling, my dream.
Yes.
And I'll get to dreams later on. But in college, I realized I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to go into architecture. And then I walked into the radio station. I realized this is where I need to be.
Interesting.
You know how you have that
Like
moment, that aha moment.
Yes.
You know, when you walk into
Epiphany.
the radio station, an epiphany. You
Yes.
walk into the radio station, and all of a sudden you see yourself
Wow.
in the mirror there, and you say, "This is where I need to be." So, ever since then, I've been on my journey to promote my career,
Yes.
to move my career along.
So let me ask you this: in high school, so you didn't do anything related to radio,
Only
public
thing I
speaking,
did-
anything in high school?
The only thing I did in high school related to radio was listen to the radio.
Okay.
That was it. I was into architecture. I was into sports, football, basketball. So like everything else, like every other high school kid, I was into things that really interest me. Architecture was my dream. That's why when I
interesting.
graduated, I wanted to go into architecture. Then when I got to college, I realized it's a whole new world out here. There's a lot more out here than I thought. And when I got into, like I said, when I got into that radio station, it was a whole new light for me.
So what took you to the radio station that particular day? Do you remember? How did you end up there?
By accident. And nothing is really an
I
accident.
was getting ready to say
Yes.
that. You took
Nothing
that right
happens
out
by
my
accident.
mouth.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I just happened to be walking from a class. I was going to a class. Yeah, I hope I was going to a class. I don't remember if I was cutting the class or going to a class.
Probably cutting the class.
Yes.
I was going to a class. We'll put it like that. I was going to a
Okay.
class, and I heard music. And I'm like, "What's all that music?" And I heard a guy's voice. So I popped in the door, and the guy at the desk said, "This is the college radio station, WCCR, and right on the campus of City College on Convent Avenue." So I said, "Oh, really?" So I walked inside, and I saw this guy on the air. He was doing his thing and playing music. He turned around, and who do I see? Me. You know how you had that epiphany?
Yeah, wow.
I
That's
said,
beautiful.
"Okay, that's where I need to be." From there, I took an internship at WWRL in New York. I had a mentor, and it's very important to have a mentor whatever you're doing.
Yes.
You see, so I always tell young people when I talk to them, find yourself a mentor. His name was Sonny Taylor, and he took me under his wing. He listened to my college tapes, which I thought were completely horrible, but I'm very critical. And so he listened to him. He said it wasn't that bad, but he gave me about 2 pages worth of notes to things to work on. I'm like, wow, I thought you said it wasn't that bad, but he said, look, just work on these points I gave you, and then send your tapes out. And I said, but I'm not ready to send my tapes out yet. I'm still in college, I'm
So when you say tapes, you talking about music tapes or
talking
speaking?
I'm talking about what we call an air check.
Okay.
When you listen to a certain portion of your show, just you talking into music.
Oh, wow.
So I was doing that at the college station. So I told him, I'm going to send my college tape out. He said, yeah, send it to. You never know who's listening.
That's right.
So I would send my tapes out, and nothing would come back. But he said, don't give up.
Right.
This is what you want to do. Don't give up. This is your dream.
And hold on for a second. One of the things you all don't know is that we really haven't had a conversation about much, but we have some running themes that
Yes.
come from all of our guests based on some of the things that you've said.
Yes.
Have a mentor.
Have a mentor.
Never give up.
And
keep dreaming.
keep dreaming.
And you have to see yourself there.
Right.
Exactly. You have to visualize yourself there.
Exactly.
And so it's very important for people to actually see themselves doing what they want to do.
My God.
If you want to be a surgeon, you want to see yourself
Yes.
in the operating room, working on someone, you know, transplanting a heart, you
Yes.
know, something. But you want to do that every day.
Yeah,
So I
every
saw
day.
myself on the radio every single day, talking to somebody. My mother thought it was crazy when I was sitting in the room talking to myself.
I was going to ask you, what did your parents think
yeah,
about that?
They were like, okay, he's in the room talking to himself. And the door's closed. I'm in there talking to myself, you know. I'm practicing.
That's
You
right.
know, and they're like, oh,
Practice.
man.
Yes.
They shaking their
Practice
heads.
makes perfect.
There you go, you know. So found myself a mentor. Fast forward a year, I went on vacation to California. First year was a setup because I had a plan. Something else people didn't know about.
Yeah,
have a plan.
Have a plan.
Gotta have a
Okay, because
plan.
if you fail to plan,
Plan,
you can
you
plan to
plan to
fail.
fail.
okay?
Exactly.
So the first year we went out just to visit Sacramento, California. Me and my friend, we went to LA, and you know, we were just hanging out. But in the back of my mind, I had a plan. I was listening to radio stations to see what they were doing. The second year we went out, the plan was coming into play because I knew in my heart I wasn't coming back home to New York. So I knew that I'm going to start out here. I haven't told my folks yet.
Some
But
things you have to keep to yourself.
Some things
until
you
it
got to
comes-
keep to
Exactly.
yourself until you're ready to make that leap.
That's right.
And so, thanks to my cousin who lived out in Sacramento, put up with me, put me up, you know. And I told my parents, look, I'm gonna stay out here, and I'm gonna make this work because I already scouted the radio station out there. And I said, I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna go to San Francisco. I'm gonna go to L.A. Maybe Philadelphia, then back home to New York. So that was my dream station, to work at WLVS.
I was going to ask you about that. So,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
exactly.
So I stayed.
So let me ask you something. You had the plan, but why was that important for you to have a plan to go from here to here to here and then eventually get to where you want it to be?
Because a lot of people, when they come up with a plan, they want to go from A to Z.
Right.
They don't want to take the side steps
Right.
or the
Right.
side streets to get to where they want to go.
And that's a good point because, like you said, a lot of people want to go from the basement
to
to
famous.
the roof.
Right.
You know, they want to get there as quickly as possible without doing all the steps in between. And my mentor told me, look, you're going to have to work in these small markets first
Okay.
before you get to a New York or L.A. or San Francisco or a Philadelphia, because there are things you need to learn
Yes.
on the way.
Okay.
Yes.
Just like in life.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
God's not going to give you things right now until you
Learn these
learn these other
things.
lessons He wants to
Right.
give you. So I realized that was my plan. Worked in Sacramento at a station called KPOP. That was my very first station I worked at on the air, out in the middle of nowhere, Roseville, California.
Wow.
And worked overnights. And then I'd come home and I would work for the bank, my regular job.
Okay, I was going to ask
Because, you know, I realized that was not enough for me to take care of myself with. And so I worked at Bank of America.
Okay.
No
Wow.
plugs, but, you know.
Right. That's where you work.
Yeah, and I worked at a club, spinning music on the weekends. So I had 3 jobs, and I know I had to get my hustle on.
That's right.
So that was how everything started. And at 22, almost 23, I talked to God every day. And
Say it again.
and you know, I grew up in the church, but I realized that I had to have my own relationship with God.
Yes.
And
That's what it's
when
about.
and so when I'm out there out in California, 3,000 miles away from mom and dad, and I'd ask them for money every now and then, but I was trying not to really hit them up because I wanted to realize I can do this on my own.
That's a lesson for all the young folks listening.
Wait a minute, I was
That,
gonna
look
say,
at all the hearts going up.
yeah,
People
right.
like,
You speaking to me, Bobby. Say that one more time so the kids can hear that.
Yeah.
Pay attention, young adults.
So I realized I talked to God every day, and despite myself,
yes.
in spite of myself, because
Yes.
you know, I did some things that I wasn't supposed to do,
Exactly.
and I made some wrong turns here and there, some bad
But
decisions.
you stayed connected.
But I stayed connected, talked to him every day. I'm quite sure his phone was saying, "This guy again." I already told him, "I'm gonna get you there. You just need to be patient."
Patience.
Because I realize, and you realize this as you get older, that God will help you with your plan, so long as you acknowledge that He can help you and you have faith.
Exactly.
Yes.
But He has to put things in place first, and I realized that He had to move some people to positions.
Oh,
He had
yes.
to touch some people's hearts
Yes.
in order for you to get to the next level.
Because your plan is not just about you.
It's not about me.
It's
Right.
about other people being in position to help you with your plan.
Exactly. There you go. So I enjoyed that first radio station there. With some great people I worked with. Shout out to C.G. Barney, who's always on my Facebook page. He was one of the people I worked with at the station out there. A couple other people. Then.
So what was like one of the major lessons you learned, or one of the major skills that you gained from working? Because you did it at the college, but when you got that particular position, that was at a different level.
That was a different
so
level.
what was that skill or a major lesson that you got from working at that radio station?
The lesson I got from there was what I learned in college. I had to kind of put behind me because sometimes those things don't always apply.
That's exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
and
Yes.
your true work experience is what's going to really get you to the
Yes.
next level.
Yes.
So that you had to deal with people you didn't know. You had to deal with people you didn't like all the time.
Right.
You had to work with them.
Yes.
And you had to learn how to navigate. And you had to know how to manage your time. In this business, you have to understand that nothing is given to you. You have to go after it.
That's right.
And that's what you have to learn also.
It's interesting you say that because as everybody knows, last Thursday was Take Your Child to Work Day.
Okay.
And I took my son, who's 16 years old, and we were talking about him getting a summer job. And just this morning, he and I were texting back and forth, and I was telling him, you can either get a job in A or B. I'll let you choose. And he said, well, I don't know anything about any one of those jobs. I said, well, that's because they're going to teach you. You don't know nothing about
Right.
nothing.
That's right.
It ain't just these two jobs you don't know anything about. And so, it's important for people to understand that we don't just show up with experience.
Right.
And somebody has to take a chance on us
Exactly.
and give us and help us gain the experience that we need.
Exactly. That's a good point because the person who hired me, Bill Jeffries was his name. He didn't know I was African American. He heard he heard the tape I put together, and I came in and he looked at me when I walked through the door and was like, "Can I help you?" I said, "I'm Bobby Gales." He says, "Oh, well, can I be honest with you? I didn't realize you were African American." Goes back to my mentor who said, "You polish
Yes.
your skills so that no one knows where you're from." Or who you are, or what ethnicity you are. So that was a lesson that I learned from my mentor. And that's a lesson that carried me all the way through my career because that was important because I was able to work at a top 40 radio station, at a smooth jazz station.
So is that the goal in radio? Is that like, that's I've gotten to success, when I get to a top 40 radio show? Because you're talking to people
Radio
that don't know
station.
a radio
Right.
station. Because you're talking
Okay.
to people that don't know anything about radio.
Okay.
And so is that
So top 40 is more top 40 radio. Let me explain. Top 40 radio is when you're playing stuff like the old Madonna, Steely Dan.
Okay.
You might be playing Spandau Ballet. It's just a matter. You might be playing some Elton John.
So it's about the music that's
about
in the
the
top
music.
40, not the
It's-
top 40 radio station.
Right. It's a top 40 format, music
Got it.
format.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
That is other than
Learn something new every
other
day.
than,
Yes.
other than what we call urban or black radio.
Yes.
It was other than that.
Okay. Other than that.
It was other than
That's a
that,
good way
yeah.
to explain
Yeah.
that.
So
Right.
when I walked in, he was like, "Oh, didn't
Okay.
realize you were African American."
Right.
So they tweaked the format eventually to become what they call a churban, a mix of
Churban.
what was this called? Churban and urban, CHR, contemporary hits.
Okay.
But that's all goes into like the minutia details. But the journey for me was, and I guess it would be the lesson I had to learn that God put me through. Because sometimes you can't have a testimony without a test.
That's right.
Say
When-
that.
That's
when you-
always,
yeah,
but that's
when
always.
when you lose that first job. that
Say
you had,
it.
and then a couple of months later you lose your basic job. That's God saying, okay, how bad do you really want this? Because right now you've been skating for about a couple of years. Now how bad do you really want this? So that means I had to get down and get my air checks, tapes together, and send them out again, and really be on the hustle, because you can get kind of complacent sometimes.
Right.
And it was only my first station, so that helped me get to another station in another top 40 formatted station in Stockton, and then out of nowhere I got a call to go to work in San Francisco, which was the second station on my plan to go to at KBLX in San Francisco.
So let me ask you this. So when you send your tapes out, I'm thinking it's like sending out resumes.
It's like, but you're right, it is.
And so when you send your tapes out, are you personalizing the letter to someone very specific, or are you just sending it to the HR department? Like,
No.
Okay.
I'm sending it to someone specific
Okay.
who I know
All right.
and who has asked me to send them a tape.
Got it. So
Okay.
they've
this
asked
way,
for it too.
They've asked for it also. And this way they know they have it, they know what you sound like,
Right.
and if it fits their format. So out of nowhere I got a call from BK Kirkland at KBLX in San Francisco, who I used to listen to in New York growing up. And so for me that was like, okay,
wow. Yeah.
okay. So there started this journey from working in San Francisco, skipping LA, skipping Philadelphia, and going right back to New York.
Wow.
So I kind of hop-stepped over those other two plans
Right.
and worked in New York.
Because it wasn't your plan, it was God's
It was
plan.
right, exactly.
Right. So when you do your air tapes and you're sending them out, do you change them up because you kind of understand what they are looking for, perhaps in those particular areas?
Yeah.
Okay.
You change your air check or your tape to the station that you're going to work for or you want to work for, so that it sounds palatable to them, so they can see, okay, he could sound good on this station here, and so that's how you have to make your tapes, your air check sound.
So what do they use now? Because I know back then
Back then we were using
cassettes.
reel to reel. I'm not trying to date myself.
I was going to ask you to talk about 70s, 80s.
Yeah, 70s, 80s.
And that's going to be relevant, I think. I think that's going to be
70s.
relevant when we get back to you being back in New York.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it was. I grew up in the 70s.
Right.
Let's put it that way. So all my starting point was in the 80s, and so there was reels
Right.
and there was cassettes,
Right.
and that's what you sent out.
Okay.
So I put them on reel and send them out, and they listen to them on reel or they listen to them on cassette player.
And so what do they use now?
Oh, now they use everything is MP3'd out too,
Okay.
so that people can get.
Because
it
I know
almost-
CDs are on their way out. So
CDs are kind of on their way out, but you can MP3 or
Right.
air check to
Okay.
anybody you want to, yeah. So from San Francisco, I went to New York, and thanks to BK Kirkland, he brought me to New York to WLVS, which
Wow,
was my
now-
main station.
Yeah, see, I know about
it's full
W.
circle.
I've never lived in New York, but if anybody
Yeah,
doesn't know what that radio
Yeah.
station is,
Right.
they don't live in the United States of America.
right, everybody know about BLS.
Exactly, exactly.
So worked there, and I worked for. Then I went to work at Kiss FM. Where I
Yes.
spent the majority of my career in different aspects in New York.
And so, talk us through the different aspects of those positions that you held while you were at those radio stations.
Okay. Mostly on air. There were some music directing positions where I'm helping the program director with music, find the right music. And let me just say that the majority of it was on air. There were other stations I worked at in New York that had nothing to do with being on the air,
Okay.
and those were sales positions.
Oh.
In sales, okay? And here's a point that I try to make to young people coming up in the business. I had the opportunity to work at WFAN, which is an all sports station, in sales. And that taught me a different lesson about the radio business that I'm in. It taught you how to make the money, how the money was made, how the station runs on revenue. So those 5 years working in sales also taught me personally about time management. It taught me about myself. It taught me about how to present to clients, how to find clients, how to think outside the box. So that was a very important lesson for me for my personal growth.
And people just need to understand, I know people know this, but I think you make a valid point that radio stations make their money from advertisers.
Exactly.
For the most part.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, mainly that's how they
That's
make
it.
their money.
Okay.
You know, so you have salespeople who go out and bring in revenue from clients, try to find new clients. And you know, I was relatively successful. I had some great clients that I was able to bring in. But it was one of those lessons that God said, you need to do this so you understand a little more about what this business is about, so you can be a little more flexible. You know, my mentor always told me, you know, it's not just enough to be on the air. You have to learn every aspect of the business.
I tell that to my team all the time. Know your business.
Exactly.
And you got to know everything that's connected to your business.
Right.
So that you
And that's
can
about
be
exposure.
successful.
Yeah,
Yes,
and that's about that
absolutely.
exposure too.
It is.
And that you were willing because you had a mentor that you listened to, that you knew, I need to do this because this is going to give me an experience or a skill that I did not have, and of
Right.
course, it's benefited you down the road.
Yes.
And,
yes.
and a lot of people come, especially the younger generation coming through, you know, they're afraid of sales, right?
Yes.
They immediately say, oh, I'm not a salesman. I don't want to sell anything. But, you know, you taking on that challenge gave you more exposure and made you understand better how the business runs.
Exactly. I realized that a lot of people say, well, I'm not a salesperson.
But we are.
But we are. Every day we
Every
sell
day.
ourselves
Absolutely.
Every day.
in one aspect of or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
This just happens to be I'm selling a product for a radio station. And I was able to do that. And it was not my first choice. I would not have gone there unless someone said, look, I have an opportunity for you to do this while you are still on the air at another radio station in the market. So I was getting the best of both worlds, you see. So the sales experience for me made sense because it opened up the doors,
Right.
you see.
You got to make yourself available for opportunities.
So
Exactly.
before you finish that, you're saying some things that's pretty key, and I want to just kind of understand a little bit more about your background in terms
Yes.
of where that comes from.
What's
Because
that?
you opened up by saying you were raised by two wonderful parents.
Yeah.
So how did your parents raise you? What did they instill in you? Because this just didn't come
No, it didn't.
from out of nowhere.
No, do as I do, do as I say, or it. Well, that's it. Just do as I say, or that's it. But
Oh, we've had some
You know, I
discussions
should-
on this show
Yeah, you know.
about that.
Let me just say that's old school.
it's old school.
And it still works in 2019.
Don't do as I do as I say.
It still works.
Yeah. But in all honesty, you know, that was one of the major points that my mother drove home to us. My father was like, just do your thing, just be happy and do your thing. And my mother's whole idea was just whatever you want to do, just be the best at it.
Yes.
There it is.
We don't know, or I can't, is not in our vocabulary.
Right.
And that's what I got from both of them.
So I'm sorry, let me just do this because I'm seeing a lot of people popping on our social media feeds, and I want to make sure that people understand who you are as you're continuing to talk in case they didn't catch the beginning. So we have Bobby Gales from WHUR
Yes.
on our show and as our company today. So I just wanted to make sure you all knew who he was in case you don't know for whatever reason.
And make sure that you're on listenvisionlive.com, and you are more than welcome to call in, especially if you have children or if you yourself have ever thought about going into this business, because he's had a long tenure, and we're going to get to that.
Right.
But you can call in at 833-202-8255.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah. So that's what my parents instilled in me, both me and my sister. So you know, that's where I get it from, and it was that no such thing as can't.
Right.
You know, don't give up if you believe in yourself, and keep God first.
Right.
And then
The rest will work itself
everything
out.
will work itself
Exactly.
out.
Yes.
Everything will work
And
itself out.
anything worth having, you must work for.
it.
You must work for it. You must be willing to make sacrifices. You must be willing to do things that other people won't do.
Yes.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
and that's something that I always talk to young people about when they are talking about what do they want to accomplish in life. You know, you just can't say, well, I want to do this and then do absolutely nothing. And sit there and wait, well, I asked God to do this for me. You know, and I'm just
And
waiting.
they're not taking any action.
You know, right. You know, you gotta make a step.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
You know, you got to make one step at least.
At least.
You know, and
Yes.
he'll make the other step for you.
Right.
You know, but you know, I always tell people, you know, look, just go for it, and that's what my wife and I instill in our children. You know, look, if it's something that you really feel strong about, don't worry about what everybody else says, or what
That's
everybody
right.
else thinks.
Right.
If you feel strongly about it, then go for it, because I got your back. You know, and God's gonna have your back. So just keep them out front all the time. So you know, when you hear people talk about, well, I tried it and it wasn't meant to be, and no, maybe you just didn't give it a chance.
Right.
You know,
Hang
maybe
in
just
there
Because it
long
didn't work the
enough.
first time.
Right.
right first time, right?
You
Exactly.
decide not to do it.
You know,
Because, you know, when we get an idea and we think we are living our dream or going after our dream, we don't stick with it long enough for it to come to fruition.
Right,
We
because-
just expect, we wake up one day like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I should be successful about tomorrow. Right? And all my friends and families should stop doing what they're doing and support what I want them to, what I'm doing, so that I can be successful.
And I think what you said was so key about the sacrifice, because I think self-reflection is just one of the greatest skills that we can have for ourselves, to be able to go back and just look. And then sometimes you look back and you're like, I just didn't put enough into that. You know, it's like you said, Sherelle, we started it, but then, I wasn't willing to make the sacrifice that I was about to face, because maybe it was the lack of faith too. Right. And when you have that lack of faith and you're not willing to make the sacrifice, you can change the trajectory of your life.
Exactly, and that's very important. And you hit on a good point about sacrifice and people not wanting to continue on.
Right.
And that's sad, because a lot of people who have a lot of talent, they just leave it off to the side. I do not believe in a plan B. So anyone.
That's powerful. Ooh,
Yes.
That's powerful. Let's explore that.
Yeah, I don't believe in a plan B. I believe that if you have a plan B, then you're setting yourself up for plan A to fail.
Oh.
Wow. I've never
Okay.
thought
I
about it
like
like
it.
that. I like
Yeah.
that.
I like
Yeah.
it.
So people.
We have a guest in the audience. That just struck a
That's from the
chord with
live audience
her.
over there.
I like it.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's,
But,
that's interesting.
Because when you have a plan B, people say, well, make sure you have a plan B. Make sure you have a backup plan. No, the backup plan you should have is another plan A, or part of your plan A to help you get there.
Connected.
Okay.
It
That's
should all be
connected too.
connected.
Because the plan B gives you an out
Yes.
for your plan A.
Okay.
You see? And
I like
a lot of people, and what winds up happening is we listen to the wrong people as people who are trying to pursue their career. They listen to the wrong people. They say, well, you need to make sure you have a good, steady job and good benefits. And, that thing may not last, and they're throwing all this shade your way and all this negativity, and all of a sudden you start listening to them and not listening to your heart and your head and faith, and all of a sudden you follow their dream. You can't achieve your dream by listening to somebody who gave up on theirs.
Ooh.
Say it.
Come on now. You about to preach up in here,
Yes.
Bobby. That's a word. I'm
Because-
telling
Yes.
you.
It's true, because they have given up on theirs. If they've given up on theirs, then why are you listening to them?
Right.
If they're throwing negativity in your footsteps, talking about, I'm doing this to protect you, or in your best interest.
Right.
No. Just support me and sit down and let me take it from there.
Right.
And I don't think that they necessarily mean any harm, but that's just how they have approached the world, and that's how they've processed it. Because what you're saying, is no accident that you're here today saying these things, because sometimes I'm telling you, we look back.
Yeah, exactly. We look back and we say, if I had only.
That's
Yep.
it. Exactly.
If I had only done
And
this.
the plan B, particularly for those of us that get degrees, we'll say, well, we'll go and we'll try this because I know if this doesn't work, then I'm going to have a plan B. And you're right. You're not really committed to that plan A
Right.
once you start putting.
Coming
I
up
just
with
never
plan B.
thought about it like that. That is very interesting.
Yeah, because
different
we-
perspective.
Yeah, we always look for excuses
Yes.
to not do things.
Huh.
And the plan B is one of them. Listening to the wrong people.
Yes.
That's another. If the person is not driving the car you want, the house you want, is not in the position where you want to eventually be,
Say it.
then why are you listening to them?
Right.
Exactly.
They have no idea.
Yeah.
Because my parents' generation, they came from you get a good job
Yes.
and you hold on to that job. You get your education, you get a good job, you retire with benefits,
That's my generation.
40% of your retirement.
That's
Right.
it.
That's about it, right?
That's
Right.
it.
40%, okay. But when
Which you
have,
won't be able to live off of.
Right.
Because then you need another job
Cover the 60%.
to cover the other 60%.
Because you've been living off the other 60% too.
Not to mention healthcare and all the other things.
Right.
You know?
Everything
Exactly.
else.
You know, right, exactly. So that's why you have to really kind of stay focused on what you want to do. We talk about people throwing things in your way. It's just mind-boggling because when my parents grew up, they had a certain aspect about things.
Right.
This generation here has no excuse.
None.
Because
Say
the
it.
technology today is ridiculous. Because now they can do things that you had to go to a network radio station to do or a network TV station to do. They can put it on their phones.
Yeah, they can do what we're
get it up on
doing.
YouTube, you know?
Exactly.
And so now
Yes.
there's so much more options for you to become successful and pursue your dreams in life.
So did you ever have a time, because I know you're saying what other people would say, but did you ever have a time where you had the negative self-talk within yourself when you were, maybe getting,
Yeah.
climbing that ladder, so to speak, and how did you, close out the noise, shut it down?
When you like I said, when you lose that job or you get fired, because if you haven't been if you've been in the business long enough, you can get fired at least twice.
Right.
Okay.
At least.
That's the reality of it. You can get
Yeah.
fired at least twice. So that's what my mentor told me. He said, "Look, you can get fired at least 2 times." I looked at him like, "What? You can get fired at least 2 times in this business, or you haven't been in it long enough, or you've been very, very fortunate." I had a self-doubt after I lost my first job, and I was out there struggling in California, and I was starting to say, "Well, this is going to be a little tough struggle here." And then I sat down, just kind of went over everything, and I said, "You know what? I've come too far. It may not be that long, but you know what? I'm not giving this up now. And sometimes you need to talk to someone." And I would talk to my mother and father, not about what I was going through, because I didn't really want them to know everything. But mothers have a way of knowing
Yes, they do.
when their child is in distress.
What?
Are you okay?
Right.
Are you okay? I could hear it in your voice.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm good. Yeah, okay. Well, everything's gonna work out. Everything's gonna work
Yes,
out.
that
And that's all I
encouragement.
needed. So I kept going. And so it didn't take long. It took about a day. And that was it.
Yes.
I was back to normal.
Yes.
So let me ask you this question. I want you to think about, for you, what you would define as the biggest success story that you have. And talk to us about how you felt when that opportunity finally came.
Career-wise or personal?
Career-wise.
Okay, career-wise.
Because personal, you have to say it was when you met your wife, because there's no other answer to that one, right? I'm gonna go ahead and help. I'm gonna go ahead and save you from yourself.
Yeah.
So it has to be that one. Then the next one has to be your kids.
Yes,
So
yes,
so there we
yes,
go.
yes. So that was it, and you're absolutely right. So now we put that to rest.
I'm gonna help you out.
Thank you very much. Career-wise, it was actually getting back to New York, working in New York. That was my high point. I'm working in New York, home. Family was able to hear me. They were able to see what I accomplished all those 5 years out in California. And it was interesting because when I worked in California, my first station, my folks came out to visit, and they heard me on the radio. They were like, "Wow, that's what you've been." Okay. And then when I got back home, and they realized I was on one of the major stations in the city, they were like, "Yeah, okay, we knew you could do it." You know, my father was like, "That's my boy there." You know? But
Yes.
that was probably one of the high points, and there's been some highs and lows. But you know, you take them all, and you have to really kind of even them out because you can't get too high on your highs, you can't get too low, get too down on your lows. And of course, personally, it was meeting my wife.
Good answer.
But in all honesty, I met my wife before I even started my career. So I've known my wife 40-something years.
Ooh,
We've been
yes.
married
Excellent.
34 years.
Yes.
So we met in high school as teenagers. So I always knew eventually she was going to be the one. You know, at 16 or 17, I was like, yeah, I know this one. It's just a matter of time. You just might as well.
Just
I'm going to marry you. Just might as well get used to it. Just get ready.
You know what's so interesting about that? I was talking to someone that's dear to us, and she told us that this guy said, you know, go ahead and live your life, but you are going to be the one. And I just think that's just interesting to know that at such a young age.
Yeah.
And you know, we had a series of marriage shows on this show, and one of the callers, I remember calling in and asked our husbands, how did you know that they were the one for you? And so it's interesting to hear you say, as a man, you know, that when you knew way back
At
then in
16.
high school that she was the one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I knew because in talking with her, she was intelligent at 17, and she had a way about her. We were at camp. It was a sleepaway camp we met, and you know, I saw that her in a bathing suit. I'm gonna be keeping.
That's
real.
right. Keep it real.
Because we already know that's how it started.
Yeah. I saw her in this orange bathing suit. I was like, okay. And you got conversation, and you're smart.
Hey.
You know what?
Hey.
What else
And
can you ask
beautiful.
for?
And beautiful. You know, so
Yes, that was it.
that was a plus for me. So I said, okay, that's the one right here, because.
So you had to step your game up.
Oh, definitely. Every day.
And still has to,
Still
right?
has to.
Exactly.
Still have to, you know. But yeah, that's you know, I knew her. We go back. We have some history, and we had to go separate ways for a while in order to find ourselves.
Yes.
But that's thank you. But that's okay, you know, because everything works out the way it's supposed to work out.
That's right.
Exactly.
You know.
And you hear stories like that a lot. We know some people right now that were together 40 years ago. They getting married. I mean, they just got me. I mean, it just happens all the time because I think that time away to live life, experience, and kind of get to know who you are
And
is
that's
sometimes
important.
necessary for folks.
That's important because you have to know who you are, and you have to figure out what you want to do with your life. And unfortunately, a lot of
Yes.
people don't know that when they're young. Some people find out later in life.
That's right.
Because we are, and all, you know, our parents tell us what to do
Right.
all our lives up and through maybe 18, 19, until you get out the house. Really.
Longer than that, as
Yeah,
long as you're
yeah,
on that
longer than
bankroll.
You know, but there's always somebody in your ear telling you what you should be doing, how you should be living,
Right.
the things you should be talking about. And it's not until you get out on your own you realize, well, that's not me. I'm starting to find out who I am.
Right.
And so it takes a while for people to really kind of figure out who they are. I talk about knowing yourself in college and knowing yourself when you go to college. Like I said, my major wanted to be architecture. And then I switched up once I got into school and realized it was broadcasting. A lot of kids declare a major in high school for college
Yes.
have no clue,
No clue.
No
really
clue.
No clue.
what it is they really are about.
Right.
They have no idea as to their gift.
Right.
They have no idea as to who they are. But they've been told and trained, declare a major. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be this.
Right.
You're going to be that. You should be that. You should do that. And then when they get out in the world and they realize that's not who I am, I want to do this.
Right. Happens a lot.
You got this degree in whatever, a master's, and all of a sudden I just want to bake cookies.
Own a bakery. Exactly.
Yeah, but then you turn around and say, yeah, well, I own a bakery.
That's right.
I have my own business. And people look at you like, well, you spent all this money to go to college and you want to cook. You want to bake cookies?
Right.
Yeah, well, that's what happens.
And it took
You know.
courage for you to really switch your major once you saw yourself there and realized early on that, nope, I'm going to make a mistake. But let me ask you this, and I ask you about when you were coming through music early on, because you've been in music how many years?
I'm in the business, you mean?
I mean the radio business.
30 plus years.
30 plus years.
We'll just say 30 plus.
I don't know
Okay.
why you over here trying to
I
act
know.
like you hold on to this age
Yes.
and this experience you have.
No, because
So, well, okay, let's put it this way. I got into radio, my very first job, and I kind of counted when I was 21, 22.
right.
Okay. So I've been in radio almost about 40 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's significant because we hear a lot about that business and just the amount of turnover and things
Right.
like that. Even here at WHUR, some of the shows that have
Some of
come
the
and go. I
turnover,
mean,
right.
some of the people have come and go. But you were in radio. Were you in New York in the 80s?
Yes.
And if so,
I was at late 80s,
late 80s.
mid to late 80s.
So what were some of the topics that you were an on-air personality, but what was that? What topics? What did you cover? What did you talk about?
Well, it was all music. It was music intense.
Oh, it's okay.
So
Okay.
It was all music. So
Okay.
there wasn't a specific show that I had to talk any types of issues about.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, I played the music, and I did my what do you call it, our mic breaks, and that was basically it. But like you said, I've been in this business 40 years. Let's say. Let's put a number on
Right.
it. Okay.
He did that for me.
I'm
See
doing
how
that
he
for
did
you,
that?
right?
Let's put a number on it.
I started when I was 12. No, I was 12. It's good. No, but and that's what I did. I played music, and I think, like I said, music was one aspect of radio for me.
Okay.
The on-air position. The other side, like I said, was the sales position. And then, fast forward coming here.
I was going to ask you that.
DC,
Yes.
that was another opportunity that I found with WHUR. Jim Watkins, the general manager, he realized that I worked in radio as a producer, on air. I worked in sales. I worked in network radio or syndication, and he's looking for someone for the Steve Harvey Morning Show they were bringing in. And he realized that I was able to. I'd be the one to handle that. Okay, I turned him down the first time.
Wow.
He was kind of annoyed
That's
at that.
look.
Yeah,
Know your worth.
because I was working over in sales at WETA
Yes.
Okay.
over here at
Yes.
Public Broadcast.
Yes.
And so, because a friend of mine from WFAN was a sales manager over there, he said, "Look, I need somebody over here. Can you come?" I said, "Cool." So I told Jim, I said, "Look, I got this commitment, and once the commitment's up, I'll come, and I can do both." And Jim said, "Whatever you want to do,
Just
I got you
come.
here. Just let's make it happen." And so, we made it happen. It was about making the Steve Harvey Morning Show the best morning show in DC, making it as local as possible.
Yes.
Because we all know that it's a syndicated show, but being able to localize it, which means make it sound like
It's
He's
right,
right
here.
here.
Yes.
tying in the elements so that people realize that Steve is part of the radio station. That's one aspect of localizing. That came from my background in producing. That came from my background in network radio, syndication radio, and it came from just being on the air and understanding what needed to be done. You know, so that's
Well, you
what
know, it's
brought me here to
interesting.
DC.
I'm sorry. It's
Mhm.
interesting that you're behind the scenes on that show. I listen to that show every morning, and I often wonder how they were able to localize it.
Mhm.
Because when I travel, I listen to it on an app,
Right.
and so just depending on where you are, it's very local. And so
Right.
it's good that you're talking about that, because
Right.
I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who had no clue how that's
Mhm.
done.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, being behind the scenes and then being the host of Taking to the Streets,
Right.
which puts me out front on the show and allows me to actually be part of the localization of the morning show,
Right.
was truly a blessing. You know, and like I said, you know, God makes ways for you. You know, all you gotta do is just believe, and sometimes it takes a while.
Yes,
You know, and people have to learn to be patient.
yes. It's
Yeah.
not always your time. It's always
But
on
the other
time.
thing is too, not only about the exposure and you learning as much about the business as possible, but you obviously showed up with excellence in your work ethics.
Right.
And so you want to talk a little bit about that?
Work ethic, yeah.
Yes.
You want to
Yes.
get there. You want to get there half hour before you're supposed to start anything. 15 minutes before interview. If you're on time, you're late.
Right.
You know, that's my whole idea about things. But you have to be willing to put the work in, and I can't really dictate what each individual's work process is going to be. But I know mine's is thinking about it on the way to work,
Yes.
and then thinking about it again after the show, and trying to figure out, okay, well, what could I have done different?
That's that self-reflection.
You know, self-reflection, planning ahead,
Right.
and making sure that, you know, in case something happens, you know that you have a backup
Right.
to in case something goes crazy.
And
Right.
recognizing that people are always watching you,
Yes.
and that a lot of your opportunities, as well as so many of ours, people call you
Right.
because they know who you are. They know what you're going to bring to the table. And to be able to get a call from someone and say, I want you to come, and I want you to be the producer
Right.
of the Steve Harvey Morning Show as we make it local here.
Right.
That says a lot, I
And
believe.
not only that, but I'll wait on you.
I'll wait. Yeah, exactly.
That's important.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
If somebody's
yes.
willing to wait on you,
My God.
then they know what they're getting, and they're confident that you'll be able to do the job that they need
Yeah.
you to do.
Yeah. And shout out to Jim Watkins for at least having the, you know, giving me that opportunity.
Yes.
You know, because he's responsible for me being in the position I'm in now. So
And how long have you been at WHUR?
I've been at WHUR 10 years.
10
And
years.
Steve Harvey's 10 years. Yeah, Steve Harvey 10 years.
I didn't
Okay.
realize he had been
Yeah.
here that
He's
long.
been here that
Okay,
long.
that's really interesting because he does sound local. Because when I think about local, I hear him saying somebody's name, you
Right.
know, and that's how you all kind of blend
Yes.
it all in and
Blend it all
everything
in.
to make it local. So that's very. And so now I'll pay attention and listen a little differently to the show because I
Right.
listen to the show on my way to work. And then one last thing. One of the things that Steve does is at 6 o'clock in the morning he has his inspirational time.
I
How
like
how did you all merge that into the radio, into his show, and did you all get any pushback from that?
No, that's actually from Steve itself.
Okay.
That comes from Steve. So when we run the show, there it is. He's there with his inspirational 12 minutes.
Yes.
At 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So, and he hits on a lot of topics.
Yes.
He drives home a lot of points that people need to hear.
Right.
And it's very interesting because we got no pushback on that anyway, because we're coming out of a gospel.
Right.
Okay.
You know, so that kind of
Oh, so that makes
Fits
sense.
right
fits
in.
right in.
Okay.
You know. So you know, that being said, it's always important to, you know, let people know that, you know, they can dream. You know,
That's exactly
that-
right.
that They have to put God first in everything they do. You know, and you know, I always tell people myself. I tell them, look, you know, I get pushback on this, but your education is not the most important thing in your life.
It's not.
It's your dream.
It is.
And your dream will make a way for your education. You know,
Because education may not be from the institution; it may be from life.
right, exactly. And you know, Steve Harvey said this a lot of times, and he said, you know, people go to school and they have no clue about who they are, what they want to do. You know, and that's very true.
Right.
You know, so dream big,
And take
you know,
action.
take action, and don't give up. You know, fall down 6 times, get up 7.
Right. Because on that seventh time may be the
Seventh
time.
may be- right, exactly.
Right. Yes.
So-
Go ahead, Sherelle.
No, go ahead. What were you got?
I was gonna say, I just think how you ended the show is so very important in terms of giving people just, some very practical things to think about as they're progressing, as even if they're trying to get into radio, it just all matters.
Right. Yeah.
And I just think a lot of the points that you made applies regardless as
Right.
to what career you're after or what your dream is.
Right.
You got to be committed. You got to stay focused. I love don't have the plan B.
I love that. That was a nugget.
Right, exactly. And so I just think it all applies regardless as to what your dream is.
Yeah. And I gotta push something here.
Okay,
About
go ahead.
Dreams.
We got about 30 seconds.
Okay, you got 30. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I know you know about the time.
Yes.
Due to this situation I'm in now, I've been fortunate enough to go to Disney Dreamers Academy.
Yes.
The Disney Dreamers Academy
Love it.
down in Walt Disney World with Steve Harvey and Essence Magazine is an awesome experience for 100 young high school students. And they get applications from tens of thousands of people from across the country. And so I'm going to do some outreach here, and I want anyone who has a high school student who knows what they want to do to go to DisneyDreamersAcademy.com and apply to become a Disney Dreamer.
Yes.
Okay.
They have to write, these kids have to write
Yes.
an essay, and there's a panel of people who read these essays and go through all these essays, and they will pick 100 kids from across the country. We had 7 from the DMV area.
That's awesome.
It's an awesome experience for not only the kids but also for the parents.
Okay.
And there's no particular grade, it's just high school.
No, just high school,
9
from
to
9 to
12.
12.
Okay.
Okay.
Exactly. And
So-
your GPA really doesn't really matter. They want to know what you're thinking, what your
So they can
dream
help you.
is, why, your situation. So you just never know.
Never know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you
Disney
so
Dreamers
much.
Academy.com.
Dreamers Academy.
Dreamers Academy.
DisneyDreamersAcademy.com.
Okay.
DisneyDreamersAcademy.com.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming
This
on
has
the show.
been
This
so
was-
wonderful.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming on.
It's a
Who
pleasure.
knew you were going to drop some nuggets? You blessed my soul
every now
today.
And then, yeah, every now and then.
So thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you all on next Sunday. Have a great afternoon.
Thank
Thank you.
All right.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle, and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing